thank you everybody for making the time in your day to join us for this webinar. I spoke to Techion at Vets Cymru this year and mooted the idea of how about if we came in as a group, would we be able to sort of get some discounts sorted, but also for us as a lab, a benefit for us. And partly also, I'm interested to know what data you guys are finding when you're using this stuff so that we can do early disease alerts and stuff like that. So very much part of surveillance. And that's where this conversation started. And so Techion has kindly come up with a sort of like a deal or a package. And it's for those of you who are already using this system, but also for those of you who aren't yet using the system, and explain that in a bit. But I've asked him to come along really and just to chat about the whole system, how it works, the history, a little bit of the history of it, the exciting new Fluke bit that we were involved in some of the validation of, and then how the deal will work, and then a time of questions at the end. So if that's okay with everybody, I shall say thanks everyone for joining us, and I shall hand over to you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Yeah, I think I know most people on the call, actually, but I don't know. I'm Techion from Techion. I'm kind of general manager, and I've been doing this for many, many years. And I know a lot of you sort of already. I just wanted to quickly introduce a colleague as well from Techion. So Charlotte, I don't know whether you would quickly introduce yourself, Charlotte.
Hello, I'm Charlotte. I've spoken to some of you already at various places or on the phone. So I'll probably be keeping my speech to a minimum because I do have a cough. Apparently it's not COVID. I'm a bit skeptical about that. So I've been with Techion since the end of June, beginning of July. So I'm covering pretty much anything south of the M62 with sales and support and things like that. So yep. That is me.
Thanks, Charlotte. So just good to put a face to the name, because I think, yeah, you are going to be stuck with me, I'm afraid, talking because of Charlotte's lurgy she's got. She would be the go-to person, I think, after this call, anybody with any specific questions, about the deal, putting an order in, all that kind of stuff. Probably best to go to Charlotte. I'm fairly, this next week's a bit manic for me anyway, so you'll get a quick response from her as well. So basically, if I'm not sharing, guys, please shout. I'll rely on John to shout if things go wrong. We're going to talk about our FECPAK system. I'm going to go initially talk a bit of background detection. We are going to discuss the FEC side first. So I know there's Farm First and Camless, I know, are existing users. So maybe less relevant to you. You might still want to listen into that bit. But then, after just a quick introduction of that 10 minutes on the current system and the FEC is our newly launched Fluke test, which I know a lot of you, especially the new existing users, have an interest in. So just to kick off, just a bit of background about us. So Techion's a private company. Our headquarters is over in New Zealand. And our Welsh base, so I'm talking to you here from Aberystwyth, so just sort of inland a bit from the Fiarth there where the vet centre is. We are tenants of the university here in the Innovation Enterprise campus. That's our flashy new building at the bottom where our labs are. Charlotte's based in Newtown. So we cover the whole of the UK island, and our European business is operated from here in Aberystwyth. But between here and New Zealand, we've been in this space for over 20 years now, a lot of experience, etc. We'll talk about our growing network as well. And a bit of the history, FECPAK as a name has been around for a long time. That pretty little logo, which our new marketing people don't like at all, but I still quite like that. That was our old logo when we were a microscope-based test, which was developed in 1993. I'd been involved with the guys in New Zealand selling this when I was working for Innovis, selling this since 2003, so coming up to my 20-year anniversary of being involved with FECPAK and parasites. So that was the microscope-based test. We always wanted to develop and move away from that and develop the imaging-based side of things. So 2014, we brought out the first FECPAK G2. So FECPAK G2 is the second generation of FECPAK. which is going to this image-based technique, which we'll go into, and it's developed into, sorry, should say 2022 in that kind of arrow there. That's more, a little bit prettier kind of thing than that steel product we had initially. So yeah, we've been in it a long time, and the development of this, and as well as providing technology that we sell to vets and retailers and farmers, we get involved in a lot of R&D and knowledge transfer activities. So some of the kind of research work we do, then with the Cattle IP project, John and Liz from Techion were there yesterday in our farmer meeting yesterday in Techion. We just finished that project, but so some of the IP projects and Drench Smart, which is our fecal egg count reduction stuff. We collaborate with many people. I'm going to kind of go into the next slide on that a bit more as well. And we also do a lot of internal research stuff here, such as that Fluke development and some other stuff that's happening. Some work on canine, not just kind of the large animals, but we are delving into the companion animal world as well. And I guess this slide is here just to show you, as I said, we've been around for a fairly long time. And basically, we collaborate with a lot of people there on that screen. I'm not going to go through everyone, but we do a lot with scops and cows. And in Wales here, HCC and Farming Connect activities. And, one of our strongest collaborations, we're tenants of the University in Aberystwyth. We do a lot there as well, but you can see there's a lot of others. So we're fairly well networked, established, and doing a lot of the validation, some of the knowledge transfer work we're doing stuff. There's a lot happening worldwide between us and the kind of support team. If you went to the guys back in New Zealand, a lot of activities in quite a few spaces, but it is largely parasitology and largely large animal based to date. So to start off with our current methodology and our current offering in terms of fecal egg counts, anybody who hasn't seen, I should have had a kit behind me here, but that's the FECPAK kit that you get, the equipment that you need to do it on the imaging device. We'll talk in more detail. And in terms of the process, I'm assuming you guys are seeing the full screen there. My screen's hidden by my top line of this.
Yeah, it's all fine for us.
It's fine for you, yeah, there are, it's only hidden for me. So the sample collection method, we have a very specific method of collecting samples. And I think this is quite important. I'm not going to dwell too much, but certainly in the training, a lot of the training we do, it covers this aspect. We've been around a lot of vet practices over the years, and even still now we go around. We were with one earlier this week where, and I was talking to Diana Williams from Liverpool about this, we discussed it with Scops, the poor sampling techniques out there, and farmers just bringing in tubs of margarine full of dry muck, or they're not representative, they're not really covering, for pool samples not covering sort of a representative of the whole group, etc. So I think this is quite poorly done across the industry, something that Scops and cows are keen to address as well. And I think, that's a big part of us. And Eric Morgan from, he was Bristol, he's now in Queens, one of the leading parasitologists in the world, has told us, you've got really fancy gear in the middle, but your biggest win, I think, is where you collect the samples. So that's quite a biggie and a big element of what we do in the training. And I'll talk more to that when we talk about PRS material. Once the sample's collected, basically, we weigh the sample and we add water into a slurry, and we sediment it in the sedimentation jar there. And our current sedimentation, we currently sediment each sample for half an hour. What I would say in part of the development here is I'll actually go through the whole process first. So we sediment for half an hour, and that half an hour is only a minimum of half an hour. It can be longer. So when the sample comes in, what we tell people to do is to make them into a slurry, sediment it immediately. We then pour the supernatant away from in that jar, leaving the sediment which captures the eggs in the bottom. You can see there's a trap in the bottom here. We add saline solution, so it is a flotation method. We put that saline with our solution into this cylinder here, and we put the filter unit in. So we've got filters that sit inside that unit there. And then we simply, using that filter unit, we pipette out of the filtering unit and load this little cassette up. And you can see there's two wells in the cassette there. I'll talk more about those two wells. So we pipette into wells rather than putting in a flat chamber currently. We put them into these wells because these wells accumulate those eggs nicely into one viewing area for us. And then that cassette then is kind of put into our imaging device, which is the micro-eye, which I'm going to talk a bit more about in the next slide. So that device actually takes a picture of the sample and uploads that to the cloud. Okay, and I'll talk about the next process in a bit. So in terms of the preparation and what we do to the sample, it's fairly simple. We sell this to farms as well, so this is on farm in a lab. We sell to retail stores, etc. So it is fairly simple. What we do, you know, we obviously strongly, there are elements we know we can make this a bit quicker and slicker, and one of the things that's currently under the spotlight is the sedimentation technique. And can we bin that sedimentation? We only need it for a small number of samples where we have a problem with accumulation, which I can explain more when we show you the pictures of the accumulation. So we're looking at ways of working around those accumulation issues and potentially getting rid of that sedimentation, which is the half-hour step. Certainly anybody here interested in equine, I know a lot of the people here will be, you know, and the subject will be around sheep and cattle. Anybody in equine, it definitely looks very possible for that. But we've supplied multiple sedimenters. We supply 3 as part of the kit, and we can have more as well. I guess part of the message here, this is ever evolving. Anything we do to improve things, to make it better, more sensitive, and quicker and slicker for the user, you know, we work very hard on. And I mentioned the filtering. No, what I was going to mention here as well, for the detail, if anybody wants a bit more detail of the process, you know, Charlotte's happy to do kind of individual team calls if you wanted to go through more of the process. There is a video online as well we can send of this, so we're going to send you a video of the Fluke and a video of this as well online, which shows you a bit more detail of how it's done. But it's roughly about 10 minutes worth of work, 10 minutes to 15 minutes worth of work. If you do multiple samples, it's below 10 minutes per sample. You just got that half-hour wait in the middle. So in terms of the micro-eye, our imaging device, so that's a cutaway of it, showing there's a high-resolution camera in there which takes the picture. There's motors that moves the cassette in. It's got a little onboard computer, so the software sits on the computer, which sits in this bolt at the bottom of the device. So there's the software sits on there, so that makes it much easier for us to handle. And basically all you're going to do in the practice is connect this to your network, either via Wi-Fi or via network cable, and then any other computer, tablet, or potentially phone can connect to this via its network and control the software that sits on it. So in essence, your tablet or computer or phone becomes the screen and the keyboard for this device, okay? It's a bit like your network printers, Wi-Fi printers, etc. Works in exactly the same way, but it would mean, you know, and I think for a veterinary practice, a veterinary situation, it's useful to have it on a tablet or a laptop or a computer. Just having a bigger screen, I think, makes it nicer. Out on farm, we have farmers using this, you know, it's very easy to use off a smartphone as well, but we might need a bit more controllers on our screen, etc. It can be battery powered if needed, but most vet practices using it off the power as well, and we can use it offline, but maybe that's less relevant for this audience as such. So that's the imaging device, connects via the network, etc. And then when you connect into this, so when you log into the software which is on it, so you're connected via the network, you log into the software. It's got a very intuitive kind of browser-based platform which runs it, where we can go to the side there, create submissions, as you see here, ask you what species you want to do. Also allows you to add information about those animals with it, and that's quite important for us in terms of getting information about those animals. It's not just the fecal egg count. We want to know when they were treated last, what they were treated with, the condition of the animals, and that's all data that gets collated and attached to that submission, and that's data that's available then when we want to interpret our results, when we want to mine the data and look at what's happening in the data, etc. And this just again shows you, just to go back to the accumulation technology before the images are taken, our wells work. So we've got a pointy rod in the middle of our wells, and you can see there's a nice bubble. So when we're filling our wells, we create that nice bubble on the top, and what happens is the eggs in the saline will float up. So all these different egg types here will float up to the top of the wells, and they'll also float then up the curvature of the bubble. and they collect around this point here. And if I just run this video, you'll see this is quick and this is speeded up. You can see that video there, all of those eggs collecting around the tip of that rod, like kind of debris if you went around a desert island. What do you call it? They just float up against that beach around that kind of tip of that rod there. And that means that's in one central location where we can image it. Means we minimize how many images we need to upload and then analyze as well. Okay, so that's our knowledge to accumulate it. And then, as I said, we've got users, whether it be farm or vets or labs or whatever, who use this, upload these images up to our cloud-based system. So the images leave your device, go up via the connection, the internet connection to our cloud-based system with the information about the samples, where it gets analyzed. I'll talk about the analysis in a minute. And then we get quick results back to you via email. We currently promise results within 1 hour, and a lot of the time we get it back within 20 minutes. We try and get as many back within that 20 minutes as we can, but our promise is within an hour unless there's any issues. But there's other elements we want to do with this as well. We can actually connect this to other people as well when we send the results out to the expertise, so we can send the results to multiple people with those right permissions. We also want to be able to the ability to store and analyze that data if you want. What else we can talk about that data. So we're looking at things like decision support, and I think John mentioned the alerts and reminders, what we can do with it. So we talk about the automated prompts here, etc. That can come out a bit about. The automated prompts is more around prompting our users about when they should be testing. So you can set up programs for your farmers if you're doing your flock health plans and herd health plans, and you talk about testing, and we say we should be testing our calves around housing, around turnout or whatever. We look at ewes around lambing time, our lambs in the field, when are the key times to test or what to look out for. We can set little reminders in here. It's not quite on the new platform yet, but it won't be long that we're going to have that IPMS system, we call it, Integrated Parasite Management System, where we can set these little prompts up. It'll alert the farmer when to go and test. It'll also send a reminder. If we haven't seen a test within a 10-day, 2-week period, it'll remind the vet and the farmer about, we said we're going to test these animals, then I haven't seen one submitted. So it's bringing some extra intelligence there, but also then, once the data's up there, what we can do from that surveillance point of view, which I know the group and the central vet labs are actually really interested in. Results, decision support, and linking the data and how we utilize the data. And I think I'm just as excited about how the data and using the data that's up here in the cloud as I am about the easier way of doing fecal egg counts. Because at the moment, I'm guessing a lot of you are doing, your FECPAK counts. Sometimes they just go no further than the lab book on paper in the lab. They might go into a CRM, and depending on your CRM system, your client management system, and the practice management system, how easy it is to mine that data out. So we can create it easily and utilize that data very easily here, while complying with GDPR rules. I would sort of state that as well. So it's only the information location that we're actually interested in when we look at the bigger picture data. So those images, they get uploaded. The process of sending results back currently is we have technicians who actually look at these images at the moment, and we mark them up. So it's much easier to mark them up than looking at a microscope. And what we put a color dot on here, but we can easily go back and validate it and check that we've done everything. Whereas current microscope-based tests, you wash the sample down the sink and the evidence is gone. But we mark it up. The software counts how many eggs we've seen and calculates automatically the EPG. So we generate the report automatically based on how many particles are marked up. That's one less step of a human error as well. Okay, sort of again, part of that kind of quality control as part of this. And this is the bit that is very, very close to becoming reality at last. Fleer and those others who are current clients will laugh at it because we've been talking about this for a long time, but finally we're getting closer to the software actually reading our samples. So machine learning, artificial intelligence, being able to read these images, and that means getting results back in real time. We are currently in a state where when our markup technicians go in and have a look at the image, what they're doing now is that AI has already had a go first, and we're going in and correcting what the AI might have got wrong. As we're correcting it, the machine learning keeps learning. And once we're at a state where we are comfortable with the results that AI tells us, that will be launched, and that will mean results back within minutes, basically. So it takes about 14 seconds to read images. It's just the upload speed and the collation of the report and the download speed. So that will mean we'll change from a promise within an hour, most of the time within 20 minutes, down to a couple of minutes having results back and getting quick results back. So we're quite excited about the prospect of this, sort of improvement again. And just to show you an example of the kind of reports we have. So this is a PDF, so you have an email going back. I meant to mention earlier as well, you can set up your clients with accounts on the system. So on the software, for your clients to do regular testing through you. I know a lot of you will have very active clients who are engaged with you and do regular tests. They can have an account on the system where you log it against that account. And when the result's ready to go, there'll be an email that can fire directly to the client immediately. We don't need anybody in the practice to be sat there waiting to send results on. That means clients can get results quickly. It can be copied to the practice, but also individual vets within the practice who are key client managers or account managers for different farmers. Then we could copy certain personnel within your practice to those results. So we could have the likes of you could be sitting in your lay-by having a sandwich between TB test visits or whatever, flicking on your phone and seeing some FECPAK samples that were done and see what's happened. We do have a link here. I haven't shown this today, but there's a link to a treatment guide. So that's a guide to what's low, medium, high. We call those zones unlikely to treat, possibly treat, and likely to treat, rather than being too prescriptive. But it does still allow you to intercept that and do those decisions. You can choose, if you'd rather have a vet interpret egg counts before they go out, you've got that choice. We can turn this ability to do this off so that the result doesn't go to the farmer before a vet seeing. However, hopefully you have a look at the guide. We're all about getting results back into farmers' hands quickly, and we know that the veterinary industry is under pressure generally in terms of staffing and whatever, and there's pressures on vet practices, and sometimes it means delays getting results back to the clients, and sometimes I think that hampers, uptake sometimes potentially. So we think this kind of method does work quite nicely, where we can send results quickly. We don't have to wait for specific interpretation, but everybody still sees them, and there's an opportunity to intercept things if needed. And as I said, so we can send the results to multiple people, to the farmer directly, to the vet, to the retailers if you wish. But certainly, if you're doing campaigns with pharmaceutical companies, we work with some of the bigger companies out there. If there's a particular campaign they want to do with some of your clients, we can actually label things, and those samples as part of that campaign can be shared with us, with the pharmaceutical company as well, but with the correct permissions in place. Excuse me. Things just frozen. Just go into the specifics. We will be sharing this as well. I meant to say at the beginning, we will be sharing these slides as well, so don't have to scribble things down frantically. So we'll share this, the PDF of these slides with you after the call. And just to give you the specific details, so our detection levels, what some people refer to as sensitivity, we tend to call sensitivity here. So this is the multiplication factor. So each egg we see in our images, how much we multiply them by. This is very important. So for our sheep, we are 35 EPG sensitivity for sheep. For cattle, we're 20 EPG, and I think that's very important. I mentioned this in yesterday's cattle roundroom meeting. For cattle FECs, we tend to find lower levels, and our thresholds where we think about treating, although they're ambiguous and they're debatable thresholds, they're generally a lot lower than they are for sheep. So taking in mind those thresholds, I think we need a detection levels to be a bit lower. I think the industry standard of 50, when you're looking at masters, is challenging when we're looking at cattle, because you only need 2 eggs to get up to around that 100 egg per gram mark that we're looking at. So our sensitivity is better at 20, but we'd like to get that lower as well. And some of the new work we're doing is looking at getting at that. A lot of the work we did with Stefan Vets, one of our clients, as part of that project, we were doing a lot of samples, especially around testing for wormer efficacy. We were running them twice. to get our sensitivities down to 10 EPG, or detection levels down to 10 EPG, and that's where we'd like to be. And yeah, for the cattle and the equine, we are working, on getting them better. Now, what that would mean for anybody who's invested in this already, for current clients and for anybody new signing up, anything we improve in terms of those simple tweaks to a methodology, it might mean some new bits of plastic to do the preparation different, but there'll be no additional charge for that. Because those simple tweaks to methodology, it'll be a free of charge upgrade when it's those simple things. The bigger things like developing a new Fluke test on top of this, there is a charge for those, which we'll come to, but anything we improve is a free of charge rollout when we do these things. But, cattle at 20 EPG, it's worked well in that cattle project, but it doesn't mean that we're standing still, and we'd like to get things just that tweaked a little bit better. And these things are validated as well. I'm putting this up there to show the validation. They're available if people want to. That shows our sheep validation at the bottom, and we validated our equine stuff, for example, with the university here as part of a KES project. And then, yeah, just as a summary to those things, I'm not going to dwell too much on this slide, but just, this replaces what we traditionally use microscope-based methods, because we know variability and technicians using microscopes, is very variable. It's very tiring if we do a lot of it as well, so it takes out that fatigue element. We are moving to that kind of cloud-based kind of analysis and quick turnaround. But I think the big thing, which we have touched on anyway, is the data integrity. So it's auditable. We can go back and check those images. It's secure and accessible, etc. And we are multiple species. Okay, the list of species is there, etc. So it is simple to do, and for a lot of technicians, a lot of vet practices, it's. I know a lot of vets still spend time looking on microscopes, which I'm not sure is the best use of the vet's time. So certainly, this is something that can definitely be left in that. We can pass it on to lab techs, vet nurses, etc., receptionists, as we saw with a client the other day as well. So moving on quickly, just conscious of time, to talk about the newbie, the new thing in the family, which is Fluke testing. So this is very much based on the same platform as we had before. So the same software, the imaging device is very similar. Currently, it's not the same. It'll look exactly the same, but the settings within them are slightly different. So it will be an additional imaging device, okay? And we'll talk about that at the end anyway. I think for vet practices, it's advantageous to have two anyway. That's all it is. And I'm going to go through in detail. It's a different preparation using a filtration sedimentation method. And we've got a different cassette that we put into our device. So instead of these well cassettes where we accumulate those eggs and float those eggs to the top of these wells, we have now a sedimentation technique. As many will know, flotation doesn't work very well for liver fluke and rumen fluke eggs. They burst open, we lose a lot of them, etc. Okay, these liver fluke eggs are tricky. So as an overview, so this work that we launched, we've recently launched this at the BCVA, and we'll have our first kits of this rolling out in January. There's a bit of a delay with the kind of hardware kind of delays with our kind of supply channels, some of the challenges there. So it's January, we'll be rolling these out to the clients. We've got it up and running in the lab. But basically, it was work we did with the university here. So Claire Reigate did a PhD project to develop this work with us, which finished sort of earlier last year. And it's sample processing through filters, cleanup, sample submission, again, same principles. And these images of the fluke eggs goes up to the cloud and gets analyzed. And we will be analyzing them with AI immediately. It's going to be AI assisted to start with. And just to get into a bit of the detail to understand a bit how this would work in practice, we measure out 2 grams of sample. Okay, so we put 2 grams at a time through, and I'll talk to multiple processing in a minute. So we put 2 grams. We're using the Fluke Finder. Currently, we're using our Fluke Finder methodology, which is an American made set of sieves, but they're basically smaller sieves, which has a bit of an advantage. So we put 2 grams through into a slurry, pour it through the sieve, and we wash it through the top sieve. Then with running water, the eggs come through the top sieve, and they capture in. There's a top filter there. They capture in this bottom filter there. We keep on washing it through until it's clear. The eggs that are collected in here, then we backwash it then out of that bottom filter into this kind of 50 ml Falcon tube. Okay. Now, I know in the WVSE that I know there's techs and vets here, sort of from there, you use very large sieves, okay? One of the things that we have found is with those large sieves, it's difficult to do the washing off the sieves. These Fluke eggs are very sticky. They catch in little nooks and crevices everywhere, and they are very tricky. So one of the things Claire found, going to this much smaller sieve does make it much easier to wash it out. And I think we do have a better, slightly better harvesting of eggs because of that fact. I think that's one of the factors that's happening. One of the challenges is we can only put 2 grams in, and I'll talk about this, and maybe to prove a negative, we've got to do this multiple times to prove that negative, which I'll come to. And then, so once you wash it through the sieves, so that's fairly quick. That's a couple of minutes job to just do the slurry, wash it through the sieves, and backwash it into your falcon tube. Then we take the falcon tubes and do some repeat sedimentations within the falcon tubes to do further cleanup steps, or more cleanup steps within this. And you can see here, so what we, and I'll come here, we are doing 5 preps, because I think to prove a negative, we need to do 5 repeats of this. Now, we're probably going to prep these together as 5 because it's fairly quick to do. And there's a, you can see here, the first step within the first 50 ml tube, we sediment the eggs for 4 minutes and then remove the floating debris. We remove the supernatant. We transfer that then into the smaller 15 ml tubes, and we sediment here for 2 minutes, removing floating debris again, and we repeat this washing until it is actually, until it's fairly clean. And typically that takes 4 washes of 2 minutes each in here. Okay, so we're doing that kind of. It's very similar to standard sedimentation filtration kind of methods. So, and again, there'll be a video of this process to show it as well as these slides. Okay. So once you've got your last preparation done, the last wash done, and the sample's fairly clean, so when we're adding the water, it's fairly clean, we're removing the supernatant. We remove the supernatant either using an aspirator there, or we'll provide big kind of squeeze things. The pipette, we have large, remember the name of them now, but there's large pipettes that we use to squeeze the supernatant out. Once we've got that into the last wash, we then add a bit of methylene blue, so a little bit of stain to it. We then tip that into our cassette. So this is our sediment cassette. We put the cover slide on, and then we put it into the device, and then the software again works very similarly. But now, instead of imaging our sort of imaging our cassette, imaging the well, sorry, we're imaging the large area of the sedimenting cassette. Okay, so there's multiple images which then get uploaded to the clouds. Okay. What was I going to say? Yeah, so the notes here, yeah, to prove a negative. Now, this is the challenge. Anybody who's done liver fluke testing before is that the process, it's finding that first egg. And to prove a negative liver fluke test, we should be completing this 5 times, especially for cattle. Maybe for sheep, we might be able to reduce that, but we're still saying 5 for sheep at the moment until we've got more data, as we start generating more data to prove that. But certainly in the interim, we're going to do 5 repeats of that to prove a negative. However, if you found a positive in your first or second cassette, you can stop at that point. Okay, so there's no need to put through the next cassettes. But what we say, because we're going 5 repeats to prove that negative, we may as well process 5 together, because that's processing 5 versus processing 1 is hardly much, it's hardly much extra time at all. It takes about, counting for the 4 minutes and the 2 minutes, it's about 15, 18 minutes potentially to process your 5. And then the cassettes going through, then they take about 6-7 minutes, maybe a bit longer at the moment initially, to go through that kind of imaging device. And what we need to do then is make sure we get results back to you quickly to know whether we need to put those repeated cassettes through. Okay, so that's the process at the moment. As I said, we can stop, and it's all down to liver fluke, because that's the main focus of this. We detect rumen fluke as well, but the main focus for us is liver fluke, and it's, I guess, proving a negative, or certainly proving that there's very low fluke numbers in there. And just to show you a bit more detail of the pictures, so these will be analysed using AI. It'll be AI assisted initially with our text checking images before they go out again, until again they're reliable, but that AI is working in that background. We developed a lot of this with Supercomputing Wales and the university, helped in the development of this. And you can see here, amongst all the debris there, the AI is picking up these liver fluke eggs here, these golden brown ones here, okay? And again, to show you a slightly better, clearer picture, this is, the red arrows here are the liver flukes, and the green arrows, are pointing out to the grayer kind of rumen fluke eggs. And this is something I think that can get missed by some tech potentially out there, etc. So yeah, it is AI is accurately differentiating between them. So it's definitely differentiating between the different fluke egg types. Excuse me. And it's pretty good. It's very good actually picking the liver fluke. If it misses anything, it's the rumen fluke eggs, which are probably least important if you were thinking about it. And generally, rumen fluke, they are there in fairly large numbers when they're there, okay? And we'll be reporting back to you positive, negative, or detected, non-detected. We will also let you know how many eggs we have seen, but that is in the latter part of the report, okay? So that will work, and that will be similar again, results back to you within an hour initially while we have text checking, but we really want to get those results back quick to know whether we need to do repeat tests. And again, going into the specific details, the detection limits that we've got here for sheep and cattle, we're looking at it's a 5 EPG detection limit. So in spiked samples, so this is all the validation and the results that Claire did in her PhD. So in spiked sample studies, we found at least one in every rep when we did the spiked sample, when they're at 5 EPG level. At lower levels then, it's still fairly good. But we pick up 75% of cattle ones when they're at much lower levels in spiked samples, and 55% in the sheep. So we do tend to get better egg recovery, and this is common, I think, amongst a lot of tests. You get better egg recovery in cattle than you do in sheep when you're doing these spiked sample studies. But I think naturally maybe there's lower egg levels in cattle. And then we actually did, so John mentioned at the beginning some of the work that WVSC did in helping us with some of the validation. This is some very recent work we did where we looked at naturally infected cattle from a local farm here to Aberystwyth, and we looked at 20 individuals. We knew there was some fluke in the herd, and we looked at 20 individuals, and you can see here, detected, not detected, what we found in terms of liver fluke and rumen fluke, and what the WVSC found. And this is comparing us putting 10 grams. So this is looking at 5 repeats, putting 10 grams through, and the WVSC, John will correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's looking at 40 grams going through. So what was pleasing for us on that individual basis is that we were, definitely as good as what the 40-gram APHA methodology was, and these matched as well. So the 8 that was detected here, we detected those 8. We did pick up another 2 that WVSC didn't. I wouldn't get too excited about that because when we did pick them up, they were very, very low egg numbers. So I wouldn't criticize, that methodology for not picking them up because they were very low numbers. But I guess it was encouraging. It was that way around for us rather than the other way around, if you want. Okay, so it's been validated, and the WVSC has taken a part of that. So yeah, so just talking about, I guess, the evolution of where we're at. So currently now, what we had available now when it's been out there is our gutworm fecal egg counting for the GI parasites. What's the new release now, which will be rolling these out in January, is our gutworm and rumen fluke FECs. As I said initially, it is going to have to be 2 separate devices. And I think for vet practice anyway, because the liver fluke test, if you were going to do 5 repeats, your microarray is going to be tied up for a fair while doing that anyway. So if you've got FECs and flukes to do at the same time, at least you can crack on doing the FEC ones while the liver fluke one is processing it. And then this is future release is our coccidia work, which I'm going to mention very briefly as we finish. So coccidial oocyte work is that future thing. So this is looking at speciation. And you can see this is the current microarray. This is what we're calling our combi. So this will be a combined one that this is looking at nanoparticles as well as the larger particles. So this is going to much smaller particles. Currently, coccidia, we can't do coccidia under our current version. Even doing a simple count, we can see coccidia often, but we're not reliable for that. But what we've got coming around the corner in our coccidia work, this is only one slide talking about this. We are just coming to an end of this month of an Innovate UK project, working with Raft Solutions up in York. And this is looking at, can we speciate pathogenic, non-pathogenic coccidia based on morphology assists and not needing to sporulate them, which, as we're aware, takes 1 week. Okay, so this is using artificial intelligence again and training these AI models to be able to speciate from, sorry, that should say cysts there. I didn't realize that mistake was in there. And so these were cysts, looking at that, and that would be quite exciting if we can do that. It certainly looks very promising for the cattle side, and I know there's people who do this for cattle already, looking under a microscope, they don't sporulate, and that will be able to give us immediate kind of results. Sheep is more challenging, but we might be able to give a fair amount of information for sheep as well, more than maybe we anticipated early on. But we'll know more in the coming months once we come to the end of this project and the analysis is done. And potentially next year, we'll have another launch of our third test, if you will, platform, or protozoan, but that's certainly more for the future. The here and now, I just wanted to talk quickly about the POS material. I forgot I had these in here, but I guess I wanted to talk about, it's not just about the fancy tech in the middle. We know that engaging with the farmers with this is challenging. There's a lot of distractions for us as vets as well. There's a lot of things we're going to think about as vets, and pushing farmers to send samples in isn't always the easiest. So we do provide point of sale material as part of the package. And I think, flyers, posters or whatever, but certainly here, I think these, potentially are quite important, and be keen to talk to you about them a bit more. These test kits is here, which comes in a stand that can sit in the practice. We can have these test kits sat in your car. So these are for sample collection and basically looking in more detail what's inside. It's got a sample bag with scoop and gloves, etc., and instructions on how to collect it. I talked at the beginning about one of the biggest things I see being done wrong when it comes to fecal egg counting out there is poor samples at the start. And it doesn't matter how good your test is in the middle. If it's a poor sample at the start that's not representative, it's going to be poor throughout. So this is quite an important element, and I think helps standardize a lot of what we do out there in the industry. So certainly we do have this solution which is available. We provide a certain number of test kits as part of the initial subscription, and then you're going to buy your own refills. So if you want more test kit boxes, you buy more of them from us. They also have a label as well. So there's a submission label, and it asks the specific questions that we want to know. So when they were treated last, what they were treated with, the condition of them, etc. So that's, I guess, we understand a lot about what's needed to push the farmers to kind of test and trying to help with that. We understand the results, it's a lot more than just the fancy tech in the middle, I guess, and there's a more to our offering from that. So just coming into the last 10 minutes, I just want to come quickly in 5 minutes. I want to leave time for questions. The deal that we've got for you was the Welsh Vet Consortiums as part of the 2 consortiums, North and South. It is for any new orders and payments received before the end of November. I know we're tight. I know a lot of you have been considering this for a while anyway. It would be great if we could hit that, but if we can come and talk to us if that date is challenging, but certainly we don't want it to step too far from that, and ideally before that. And the deal is 15% discount. I'm going to go through the costs very quickly. 15% discount on the first year costs in terms of the core subscription and the hardware. There is a longer term discount then, and this would be applicable to everybody in the call, even existing users. If we have 15 or more subscribers as part of the consortium, and that includes those who are already subscribing, so those on the call already. If we have 15 in the group in total, then even in subsequent years, the discount will come down by 10% there as well. And there's also an added benefit to WBSC. So every consortium member which signs up will help reduce the base subscription for a central one at the labs as well. Okay. And just to go through quickly what our prices are. And again, we can share these with you. So you pay initial hardware and you pay an ongoing subscription. So the hardware, just to do a standard hardware, just for doing gin parasites, or some people might only want to do Fluke. You can choose to do either only Fluke or only the GIN parasites, or you can do both together. To do one of them is £1,200, and then to add a Fluke model, which includes that additional micro-eye, is £400, okay? And that's a one-off cost at the beginning. So that's just a one-off cost at the beginning, and then your ongoing annual subscriptions then Your core subscriptions for a single site, which is the majority of you think, this is before the 15% discount. Okay, these are prices before discount, just to reiterate that. So the discount applies there. The single site is where the discount would be. So that's £800, okay, which after the discount comes down to £680. If you were working in a larger vet practice where you've got multiple sites, you might want multiple kits and multiple sites. This is what the multiple sites subscription is all about. Maybe not relevant for most on this call, okay? And that includes then, so yeah, your core subscription includes one of the test modules. We'll talk about adding the other test module in there, okay? It includes all the species you want, and it includes 200 sample credits, okay? That includes the reading of them. And then when we look at the additional add-ons then, if you wanted to do both, okay? So I've kept the core one up there in the corner there, okay? Just for relevance. I've added the add-on test module. This is to, if you wanted to add Fluke on top of your tests, is an additional £300 before the discount is on offer, okay? So the £300 there, and as well as adding, £300 added, you add another 50 sample credits to your allowance. So now we've got 200. If you wanted the extra module, it's 250 credits, okay? And in terms of the credits, how they use, a standard FEC is 1 credit, and a Fluke egg test is 2 credits. So basically, a Fluke egg test is worth twice the amount of what a standard FEC is, okay? So you eat in quicker into your credit allowance when you've got a Fluke egg test, just to explain that part. I've got I'm going to share with you a spreadsheet as well, which helps, a calculator, which helps calculate this on a per sample basis, okay? Anybody that utilizes the 200, or let's say 250 collectively, credits in here, once you cross that allowance, you can buy credit bundles, and the credit bundles are cheaper per credit, okay? So once you cross it, the price comes down. So the way this model is built is to reward those who are doing higher volumes, because so if you work at higher volumes, you want to buy them, etc., and it comes down in price, and the cost per sample comes down to you, which I'll show you in there, okay? And I might just go to that calculator now. I'll just end this show and I'll just go to the calculator and just show tabs only. So there, I'll just hide some at the top there. So hopefully this is big enough for you guys. So we'll send this out to you as well. Sorry, that's haywire. So when you get this calculator, what you need to do is just to alter the values in the green cell. I'm guessing most of you are 1 sites, and in this scenario, I'm guessing you want to add on the module. So you want to do Gin, Fluke, FEC, and Fluke FECs, okay? This is to do with the POS test kit boxes. So this is whether you want to use the test kit boxes or not. If you click no in here, it won't calculate them in, okay? And what this does then, based on your volumes, you can put your annual sample volumes into here for each test. It'll work out how many credits are used, and it'll work out your cost per sample. This is the average cost per sample. This is the cost per sample, including the cost of our test kits that you might want to use in it, okay? So this scenario here, the 150 FEC tests and 50 Fluke tests, which I'm hoping most practices should be hitting if we're doing a good job of encouraging our clients to do this, would be work out at a per sample basis, sorry, of £4.40 for a FEC test and £8.80, so it's double the cost for a Fluke FEC test. The ones here show you the annual subscription cost, but this is the important one here, is what is the cost per test. You can scroll down if you want to see the workings out, how it's all worked out, but that's not of relevance. The important part is the green boxes here and what's in here. If we look at a high volume users, I know there's some people on the call might be doing higher volumes than that. So if, let's put in, we're doing 300 FEC tests a year for our clients and we're doing 150, let's double the amounts, okay? You can see the cost per sample to you comes down, okay? So it comes down to £3 per test, and that includes all the analysis, all the software kind of support, etc. Yes, £3 per test for FEC, and it's £6 per test for Fluke test, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I think this is probably the most relevant for you when you get it as an attachment to work out, right, our volumes, how much we're doing. As I said, we expect, you've got to look at how much we expect to be doing, because if we're doing a good job of pushing these out, we can talk to you individually about what kind of volumes typically practices do. I know the two people on the call who are current clients are probably hitting this fairly easily. So we should be looking at those kind of volumes in there. But I think, yeah, to work out your cost per test, you can look at that. And then only the last couple of slides quickly on here. And then there's a few extra bits. If you went, this is the cost of the refill test kits for your test kit bundles, okay? And the POS, this is the second page of your price list if you went. This is for any additional equipment. If you're doing particularly high volumes in a day, you can buy more equipment from us. Maybe not relevant to the majority in here, but if you want to really push through, maybe for the central lab in Aberystwyth, you want that. And yeah, just to summarize the discount, that's the discount there. Summarizes, when I say just summarizes the prices I showed you. So with a 15% discount, a £2,700 cost comes down to 2,295 if you went Fluke and Gin and you're a new client. So there's quite a strong discount there of £400 and just over £400 for that first year cost there, okay? And the other part of the deal, which we will reiterate, is the full training that's done. If we have large numbers, we could do those training in groups, but there's two different sets of training. There's one set of training for the people actually doing the nuts and bolts processing a sample. The other part we think is quite important is more of how to sell the service, what and when to test. So this can be done in larger groups. So this is more for the farmer-facing staff. So maybe some of the vets out there to encourage uptake of the service. We've done a lot of this. We've done a lot of the training with vets, etc. So certainly with young members of staff who are coming in, you know, I think this would be quite useful. And certainly this second set of training we can do maybe in bigger groups amongst the consortium, and we can do that online. And we've got quite novel ideas about how we encourage farmers to actually test and thinking a bit more, you know, about when we should test and use it. And what we'd like to do with the group as well, which I think is quite important, we've got a lot of expertise, a lot of background in this, is maybe we meet up on a regular basis, maybe 3 times a year as a minimum. We meet up online and do a bit of a shared experiences, talk about what's relevant to that time of year and hopefully help you guys achieve the desired outcomes. And we talked about the data sharing, but I think this is quite valuable as well. With your consent, we'd like to share anonymized data with the WVSC, who can further share it maybe with Welsh Government, whoever, because I think the surveillance element of this is quite important. Right, I'm up under my time, I know that, so I'll shut up now. We've got 2 minutes left, so I haven't left that much for questions, sorry, John, but I'll stop sharing maybe.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Adrian.